maintains that it is not illegal.
Government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hello everyone, I'm Mark Skevich, also known as Mark the Statman Skevich from the sports talk show Real Fans Real Talk on realfansrealtalk.com. And I'm back for another edition of Not Politics as Usual, the show that debates politics in a different way with some average people. Sometimes we have politicians on the show. This topic is going to be the much debated topic of gun control. And before we get into that, let me introduce the panel. We have Andy Sullivan running for City Council of the 43rd District. Good to have you back, Andy.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate that.
And we have the founder of the Truth Squad, Danny Panzella, joining us again. Good to have you back, Danny.
Thanks for having me.
And accountant Eric Estevez joining us once again. Good to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and once again, I said that today's topic is gun control, and there's a little bit of a misunderstanding on the Second Amendment sometimes. So, Andy, would you be able to read out there to the folks the exact wording of the Second Amendment?
I would be honored to. The Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Okay. And sometimes, you know, the beginning of that, a well-regulated militia, some people who want to debate that, well, where's the militia? Well, the reason why it was created in the event that the government tries to not be a democracy, the people need to be able to organize a militia in that event. And that's where the right to bear arms takes place. So you have a lot of times people debate, oh, where's the militia? And, oh, it was muskets back then. And, you know, now we have assault rifles. Well, if you really want to compare muskets, back then, the citizens had muskets and the government had muskets. Now the citizens have assault rifles, the government have tanks and F-15s and you know, bombers and all different types of things. So we're not really comparing apples to apples on that one. But like I said, much debated. We'll start with you, Danny, actually, as far as your take on the whole gun control issue right now.
Well, what I'd like to actually start with is kind of the history, and the idea of the militia was that the adult males, and I know this is a patriarchal society and we can kind of argue that, but the adult males, or if you want to say the adults of the community, were the militia. So there was no standing police force, there was no standing army. The Constitution makes no provision for a standing army. They make a provision for a navy to protect the borders of the continent, but there's no provision for a standing army. So the idea was that every man, and presumably woman, would be trained and used to using firearms, would have firearms, and when there was a need to either protect the community as a police force, you know, they used to say calling the posse together, the elected sheriff would kind of oversee the law enforcement for the community. They would call the posse together, which was the militia, the adult males of the community, and then, or at a state level, or at a federal level, if we needed to go to war with Mexico, Canada, whatever it was, they could call together the militias as, I don't know the military terms, but you know, basically as portions of a military to defend the country for a temporary period, and then once wartime is over, everybody goes back to their lives. So that's kind of the foundation of what the founders intended. So that is why it is crucial for, really, there really shouldn't be any kind of standing military, but that's why it's crucial that in our present day and age, the citizenry be as armed as the government.
Okay, and another thing that was said as far as the founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson said that the Second Amendment won't need to be used until the government tries to take it away.
That's right.
Passing on to you, Eric, what's your thoughts on gun control?
Listen, I mean, I believe in the Second Amendment. I think what Danny said, as far as historically speaking, is all correct. I believe in being able to carry a gun if you're as far as open carry, as far as if you're a law-abiding citizen. I think that the world has changed, and having a militia banding together to fight foreign armies is a little unrealistic today. But as far as the basic debate that's going on in our society, I believe we should be able to own guns. I think that the Obama administration is using certain events that have happened to pass their own agenda, and I think that almost all of their proposals wouldn't stop any of those events from happening. For one example is the Newtown shooting.
You said as far as the Obama administration, another thing that it is it's a big distraction. It's not going to do anything if you limit certain things, and a lot of things that are out there already in place. As far as I agree with Obama's speech as far as everything that needed to be done, as far as what he said publicly, and that makes 100% sense as far as background checks on people with mental illnesses. But a lot of these things already are pretty much in place, so it's nothing really new. As far as like if in New York, at least, if you have a mental illness, you're not going to be able to get a gun. There's no way, shape, or form that you're going to be able to pass the background check.
Even if you don't have, even if you're just a guy like myself, it's impossible to get a gun.
You can't even drive to New York with a gun.
Excessive parking tickets will deny you a gun permit in New York. So I thought it was just madness when they passed this recent gun law that Cuomo jumped on. I just thought it was just purely political expediency and him really just forecasting the 2016 elections for the presidency, as far as I'm concerned.
As far as the seven bullet magazine that doesn't exist, by the way, that nobody makes, even if they did make it, what would be the technicality if, like, with any gun, once you cock it back, you could drop the clip and put another bullet in there? What would be the technicality? You're technically using that clip, but now you would have 8 bullets instead of 7. What would be the technicality there? But
it's right up there with the Bloomberg ban, I think, sort of.
Well, to argue the minutia of that law is silly, because the bottom line is the Supremacy Clause says that anything that violates the U.S. Constitution is not a law at all, and therefore doesn't need to be followed. So the Second Amendment says that every person has the right to own a gun, and that's it. There's no right to regulation, because it doesn't make sense for us to obey laws from the king, and then the king's going to use those laws to oppress us. At that point, we need to start
but still,
exercising our rights.
Danny, we're in a society now, if any of us here got caught with a gun, it's a mandatory year in jail.
Well, live free. Live free or die.
Well, you won't. Well, you will not live free if you get caught with a gun.
Well, the other alternative is to live as a slave of the king and obey the king. So if you want to obey that law, then you're gonna you may, or disobey that law, you're gonna face that. But I'd rather be a free man living in a jail cell, and know that I lived free as long as I could until the king decided he was going to lock me up in chains, rather than live as a slave.
So do you carry?
No, I do not carry.
Would you
New York, though,
would you carry?
I don't carry for the sake for the fact it's fear. It's a fear-based position. I don't carry in violation of my own principles, because according to my principles, that is those are illegal laws. Bloomberg and Giuliani, and I want to remind you, this is not new to the Obama administration. George Bush signed an assault weapons ban. These laws, all presidents have incrementally infringed on gun rights.
Yes.
So there's no president that has ever been good on gun rights. They may have been slightly better than their predecessors or their, but none of them have ever really respected gun rights. And so in my opinion, there's no such thing as an illegal gun.
Okay, but I mean, here you are. You're a true libertarian. I mean, you're an off-the-grid sort of guy.
Yeah.
he likes reminding you that you're the libertarian, Danny.
You will not carry that gun.
Yeah, because I'm afraid of being shot by the NYPD, who does not respect my rights.
Okay, so you're afraid of being killed.
Yeah, and I admit that it's a failure on my part, because if I was really living according to my principles, I would carry no matter what. The problem is that I'm a political activist. I'm already a target of the Bloomberg administration. I'm on their radar, I've also come against our federal lawmakers, and so I'm a particular target, whereas some people who are kind of in the general population might be able to get away with infractions. I certainly can't, and they're looking to trip me up on anything they can. So, and I have a 2-year-old son, so for that reason, if I was a single guy, I'd probably be more apt to violate the law and be willing to go to jail and fight it in court and take a principled stand on it.
What about you, Eric? I know you're a big Second Amendment guy.
I'm a big Second Amendment guy. I own 2 firearms in Jersey. I am a single guy, so like I just have them in my apartment, and completely legal to have them, of course. But it's just, I just feel like everything that's trying to be passed wouldn't have stopped any of these events. It's just political expediency, as you say. They had an agenda. They're waiting for an event to happen to pass that agenda. You're talking about, let's say, limiting. Well, you know what? Let me go on this point. What the administration is trying to do is they're trying to frame semi-automatic rifles as assault, fully automatic weapons. Right. Most people just don't understand anything about guns, so they're going to say, assault rifle,
sounds reasonable,
done. Like, get rid of them. But the truth is that a semi-automatic assault rifle can kill at the same rate as a handgun, same exact rate. So 99% of gun deaths or gun illegal activity are done with handguns. They're not talking about banning handguns.
That's right.
It's really just a political ploy.
Oh, they will be talking about banning handguns as soon as they get this through.
But the thing is, that's completely true.
All right, let me interrupt you guys for a second. We're going to take a short break right now on Not Politics as Usual, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back on Not Politics as Usual. I'm Mark Skevich alongside Andy Sullivan, Danny Panzella, and Eric Estevez. And we're talking gun control. And before the break, we were kind of discussing that these assault rifles are not really the problem with most crimes. Most crimes are caused by handguns. And Danny feels that the handguns will eventually be taken away as well. What do you think of that, Eric?
I agree with Danny. I think they're going to go after the handguns. I think that the left learned a long time ago that if they take something too quickly, the people will fight back. I think that it's a slow process of desensitization. I think that they're using certain events that are happening in the country to pass their agenda. So eventually, right now they're going after semi-automatic rifles. In the future, it will be handguns, no question in my mind.
Oh, I just want to note that Hillary Clinton has committed to the United Nations for the Small Arms Treaty. The United Nations wants the American population disarmed, even of handguns, and Hillary has committed to that. So this is not just about Republicans or Democrats or the left, quote unquote. The leadership, even on the right, also supports this as well. And they've committed to the UN to do this. So, whether it's going to be over the next 10, 20, 30 years, the point is that's the direction that the party leadership as a whole on both parties is going.
All right, well, if the United Nations is going to get rid of it and guns aren't going to be out there for anybody across the world and they're just going to be extinct, and that's one thing, but that's not realistic. And
well, they're not going to extinct weapons for themselves.
Well, that's what I'm saying, exactly, and that's what's not right about it. Like, the military is still going to have weapons, they're still going to have guns, they're going to still have tanks and nuclear weapons and things of that nature, so it's just not something that the American people, but like you said though, Eric, they're kind of in a sense taking baby steps. They're going to take this and make the population feel safer with that being gone, and then say handguns, there's probably going to be another massacre with 2 handguns or whatever the case may be in the future, because crazy things happen. It's a very sad thing what happened to the children at Sandy Hook in Connecticut. That's a tragedy, but if you limit the magazine size to 7 bullets, even if those existed, someone's going to carry a belt with like 6 handguns, and if he wants to do something crazy, he's going to do something crazy, or he's just going to get an assault rifle illegally. We had, the crime mob old movies that you see with Tommy guns. It's not, you're going to have illegal weapons regardless.
No proposition by the Obama administration for this gun control would have stopped any of these Newtown events or the Aurora events. Same thing would have happened. It makes no sense. People just are not informed as far as firearms in this country. Even though a lot of people do own them, there is a good faction of the country that just doesn't get it, and it's easy for the government to manipulate that.
It's an emotional
I think
reaction.
it's a team effort, though. I think it's the government and media really working in unison to disarm us. I mean, if someone came up to me personally and said, how in the world could you disarm America? I would say, exactly everything what we're doing today. That's how I would disarm it. I would get on board with the media. I would blow up these incidents that look like they occur every other day. I would really splash it all over every form of media and just soak it into the public. And the best time to make a bad decision is in an emotional state.
Yes.
And of course, Newtown was one of the most tragic things to witness. And it was splashed all over the TV, all done on purpose, all looking for something to happen in that knee-jerk reaction with that massive blanket legislation tossed in so quickly, thrown together so haphazardly.
Oh, it was already, the legislation's there, just waiting for the tragedy to happen.
Right, and it just seems right now, I think we are definitely under siege concerning our Second Amendment rights.
Well, Andy, you're making a good point. I mean, as you know, we live in a system of checks and balances. Our government is a system of checks and balances, but who's supposed to be the check on that? It's the media. And when they're together, there's a huge problem. And
we lost our watchdogs. They've turned into the lapdog now.
Well, what me and Andy are doing, and Mark is doing with the show, is being the media. We're doing what the corporate media,
the non-mainstream
is
media,
not doing.
The rise of grassroots media.
I mean, really, that's the way it was always supposed to be. That we're the journalists, and we're the ones not just as a citizen with our vote keeping government accountable, but those of us who are paying attention, educate our neighbors, our spheres of influence, our blog, whoever's paying attention to our blog, et cetera, at whatever level you're doing it. I mean, that's our responsibility.
I agreed. I thought the last presidential press conference was like something, I equated it to my daughter going to a One Direction concert. I mean, I've seen all these fawning reporters talk about Obama's first time, I was there when you made your first speech, and all of these glowing, ridiculously absurd things, and no one's talking about Benghazi.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
No one's talking about, the seriousness of all the issues that are taking place today in the world. They're talking about, did he enjoy himself on his vacation, or how is Michelle and the kids, and it just seems to me very
it's a celebrity obsessed culture, and that's perpetuated by the media, and now they've taken that and created, DC is Hollywood in and of itself.
It's the worst reality show on TV right now.
Yeah, and I do want to just bring it back to gun control laws for a second, in that the way these laws are designed is contrary to the way our system was set up. Our system was set up that you're innocent until proven guilty. There's no such thing as pre-crime, or there's not supposed to be pre-crime in our legal system, but they've turned that on its head, and that's what it is.
Define pre-crime.
Well, you're punishing somebody before they've committed a crime. So by banning assault weapons, you're saying that everybody's a criminal, no one is allowed to have assault weapons. But the amount of crimes committed by quote-unquote legal gun owners is less than 0.1%. So, I mean, that's minuscule. So yes, when a tragedy like the Aurora shooting or Sandy Hook comes along, it seems so horrific, but statistically speaking, it's minuscule. It does not really happen very often. Every death is a tragedy. But you're not going to stop it by banning assault weapons and removing the right of people who are peaceful people who have never committed a crime with their firearms, and taking those firearms away from them, taking away their ability to protect themselves and their family, or to use it for whatever they choose.
Well, what I thought was stunning, and this comes to your point, was when they decided to publish the names and addresses of gun owners. I believe it was in White Plains.
Well, without a registry, there's no way anybody could do that.
Here's a place and a state that will not publish the names and addresses of local pedophiles, yet legal gun owners are exposed, in this very unsafe way. I just thought it was.
Well, without the intervention of government, there would be no list, and these lists are contrary to the Constitution. Sam Adams would have literally drugged some of our politicians out into the street, maybe all of them, and literally tarred and feathered them in the square for the things that they're doing.
The beer guy, Sam Adams?
Yeah, the one who has the beer in the bathtub. Sam Adams was a radical revolutionary, and he did that. And so, some of our elected officials, you're lucky that we have a very tolerant society that tolerates evil, because some of the things that these people are doing is outright evil, even though we don't like to, always use that's extreme rhetoric. But when you're violating the rights of free people, that's evil in my eyes.
What you were saying before, Andy, about them publishing the list of people that have that are registered gun
Legal
owners.
firearms.
Yes. They're probably less likely to get robbed than the ones that don't. So
I know.
As a criminal, I'll be like, all right, we got to check over, cross out this house. This one's good. They don't have a gun. We can hit that one.
You're
out.
exactly right, though.
That's true. But Janine Pirro, she was on that list.
Really?
One of the hosts of Fox, and she was furious. How dare you put my name out there, my address, and the fact that I do carry a gun?
Yeah. They definitely don't need
that-
protesters
yeah.
It's an invasion of
standing
privacy
outside.
for any citizen,
Yeah.
celebrity or not.
But like you're saying, I mean, they can say, okay,
But she's
this
a
gun
judge.
doesn't have a house.
She's put a lot of people in jail.
Oh yeah,
And
sure.
and you're talking about that X factor where that one criminal who did time will never forget that judge. Meanwhile, that judge will forget about the criminal.
Sure.
I saw a meme on the internet that said, "My neighbor is is for gun control, so I will respect his rights and his beliefs, and if he gets robbed, I will respect it, and I will not intervene with my gun."
Well, see, I mean, it's funny, and it kind of makes a point, but see, that's where I think as a community we need to come together, and not just in the sense of trying to convince him that, you should exercise your Second Amendment right before you lose it to defend yourself and your family and use firearms responsibly. But also to, as a community, we need to come to each other's aid. If there is an elderly woman next door who doesn't feel comfortable, wielding a gun, then we should kind of have those social bonds as a community to protect
Danny,
each other.
I think we've proved that we still have that type of mentality, especially after what happened to us after Sandy. I mean, I know
Sure.
you were
Yeah,
exposed
absolutely.
to it. I was exposed to it. You guys, I'm sure, tasted it a bit. And before FEMA got there or any of the other government agencies,
right.
this was citizen helping citizen.
Yes.
And they put together groups, food service, construction materials, help with removing mold-infested drywall and,
right.
and reinstalling all of this stuff. This was done in a very quick reaction, much quicker than the way government can react to it.
And that's the answer to when people say, well, what about the poor? What about the infirmed? What about the people who can't take care of themselves? The community springs into action. When there's a need.
Always does. And these are one of the things where me and Danny will absolutely agree.
On the rare occasion.
Yeah, when you talk about hospitals and schools, these were all institutions that were driven by the community themselves and mostly the church. We forget about the Catholic Church played a major role in schooling the kids and taking care of the sick. And it was only after government started to grow at this incredible rate that we started to really lose grip of things.
Yeah, well, I think that private organizations were really crucial to the community, and that's why government it's job security for government to get us dependent on it for everything, rather than private, the private sector.
I mean, I'm a numbers guy, and I think we're running a deficit of almost $2 trillion. I think it's pretty easy to cut that down to nothing if you get rid of the Department of Energy, the Department of Education, the Department of this or that. I mean, those are all just cushy jobs that are really not needed.
Well,
all that should be local.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I get so excited that I want to jump in.
Go ahead,
But
man.
the argument, it all comes down to who will build the roads. Well, everything's private contracted anyway. The government is taking everybody's money by force. The IRS comes if you don't pay your taxes, and either they're going to take your house or they're going to put you in jail. And then they're doling out that money to private contractors anyway. The space program, all of these things, energy, it's all done by private contracts. I had the opportunity to confront Al Gore a couple of years ago, he bought a company for $75 million. It was called Silver Springs Network. And what they're doing is they're developing the smart energy meters that are going to be in every house in the country. And 1 month after he bought the company, they got a $500 billion or $1 million contract from the energy department. So it's all there. It's an embezzlement scheme. They collect our tax money and then they hand it out to their cronies in the form of these private contracts or subsidies. The farming industry, Monsanto,
Just like
gets subsidies.
Dick Cheney and Halliburton
That's right.
With Afghanistan.
That's right.
But speaking of making money, since we're on the topic of gun control, gun sales have been skyrocketing because everyone's like, well, you know what? Maybe we might not have guns in the future, so let me go and get them now. Attention, Walmart shoppers, you better go and get them right now.
But even that
not like
though,
I like Walmart. I gave them a free plug there.
even that aside, it's right now getting difficult to even purchase guns because we have Homeland Security purchasing so much ammo right now. It's really starting to look very sparse out there as far as ammunition wise.
Just recently, this is the first time in my life I've ever seen no supply for 40 caliber ammunition. I've always been able to get those since, it's more common to get a 9mm or something else. I went the other day to get
which is the main problem, as we mentioned earlier, as far as 9 handguns being the cause of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're running a little low on time right now. You're watching Not Politics as Usual, and we're just going to get a final thought from everyone. We'll start with you, Andy.
Mark, first of all, I want to thank you for having me once again. And Eric and Danny, you were great panel members. And the discussion was lively. And I love to hear from the people. And as a Brooklyn City Councilman, I will be the voice of the people. I will not be another apparatchik of this political system that just really has gone so poorly and has stripped away our liberty in so many ways and crushed small business and the whole, the American dream, which I believe is under siege in an awful way. I want to bring it back to our people, our community, and eventually our whole entire nation. Thank you.
Danny, what's your final thought of?
Well, my final thought is, according to the Constitution, there's no such thing as an illegal gun.
All right.
That's a good wrap. That's simple.
It's hard to follow.
Hard to follow that one, right? Elvis has left the building. What are you going to do next?
Hey, I believe in the founding principles of America, and this is one of them, Second Amendment, all the way.
Definitely hard to follow Danny's, but I do co-sign that as far as what Danny said, where there are no illegal guns according to the Constitution, and we got to go by what our founding forefathers set forth. And I think that the cliche statement, "Guns don't kill people, people kill people." I guess the NRA slogan. I'm gonna end off with that one, I guess. And for Mark Skevich, Eric Estevez, Danny Panzella, and Andy Sullivan, I'd like to thank you for joining us again for Not Politics as Usual, and I hope you join us for the next one.